Donald Trump convicted, 34 counts, 34 felonies. How will this impact his presidential run? Now, you're going to hear people say things like, well, the Constitution just says 3 qualifications. They want you to think it is just that simple. A shame on any Democrat who buys this line without challenging the unprecedented reality of what it creates in the matrix of our voting norm. I'm going to highlight some nuances, some disagreement, and some what ifs. But first, here's what Trump said after a jury of American citizens convicted him.
This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. But the real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end and we'll win, because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess.
Divided partially because of your own rhetoric, sir. And the irony of Donald Trump saying he's fighting for the country and fighting for the Constitution when he has already echoed sentiments that he would, in fact, ignore the Constitution, suspend the Constitution. Also, let us not forget, it is the Constitution that convicted Donald Trump. It's called the right of due process. He had the right to face his accusers. He also had the right to present evidence and to cross-examine individuals who testified against him. All of these things are codified in the Constitution. They were provided to him. A jury of fact finders said he was guilty. There's more.
We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now from prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble, but this was a rigged decision right from day one with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.
Why should voters vote for convicted felons?
Are you going to drop out? You believe in the rule of law? You trust the jury? Are you going to
You notice some nuances here. Donald Trump says nothing about the body that actually convicted him, the jury. The judge did not convict him. This was not a trial by judge. The judge presided over the proceedings. He still has sentencing with millions watching and many people benefiting from this program called Indisputable. We just need 1% of the viewers to become a paid member so we can continue to bring this content to you. Now back to the show. Here's what the DA said in response.
The 12 everyday jurors vowed to make a decision based on the evidence and the law, and the evidence and the law alone. Their deliberations led them to a unanimous conclusion beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant, Donald J. Trump, is guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records in the first degree to conceal a scheme to corrupt the 2016 election. And while this defendant may be unlike any other in American history, we arrived at this trial and ultimately today at this verdict in the same manner as every other case that comes through the courtroom doors, by following the facts and the law and doing so without fear or favor.
Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg has to be complimented, commended even, for a flawless execution of this prosecution. Once again, jury members are the ones who looked at the evidence presented and, in fact, said guilty 34 times. Let's get into it. So after a Manhattan jury found Donald Trump guilty on 34 counts of falsifying business records for paying off an adult film actor, Judge Juan Merchan set a sentencing date for July 11th, just 4 days after, or before, the opening of the Republican National Convention. This is going to be a tight squeeze for the RNC, where the ex-president, now a convicted felon, is expected to be nominated as the GOP's presidential candidate. The charges are Class E felonies. Class E represents the lowest level felony in New York State and are punishable by a $5,000 fine and a sentence of 16 months or 4 years in prison. Now, technically, in the realm of legal theory, max that out and run them consecutive rather than concurrent, you have a person that's facing over 120 years in prison. But naturally, the normative way this works for a defendant like Trump, who hasn't had a criminal record before, they would get some jail time, but definitely not years. And for those who say, well, it's his first offense, he can get no jail time. We'll tell that to Kwame Kilpatrick when he was convicted for the first time for corruption and got many years. There's more. In the meantime, both sides will file what's called sentencing memos, in which the prosecution generally argues for more time and the defense argues for less time. Trump will also be required to submit to an interview with the New York City Department of Probation. Damn, I wish they had cameras in there. Which will delve into his personal life, including a review of his physical and mental health, to put together a pre-sentencing report Merchan, the judge, can use as a guide when setting Trump's punishment. There's more. The disgraced former commander-in-chief is expected to appeal, obviously, a drawn-out process that will inevitably extend far beyond the November elections. No way this is handled by then. After the jury returned its verdict, Trump fumed to reporters outside the courtroom, complaining about the judge, said the judge was conflicted, calling the trial a disgrace. And according to a latest poll conducted last month, predicted a Trump conviction would lead to a 2-point swing in Joe Biden's favor and a 6-point advantage for Biden if Trump is in fact jailed. Now, remember, when Trump came out to talk about his guilty verdict, he did not question, he did not rebuttal the facts and evidence. He just said he did nothing wrong. He did not go into any detail about how he was falsely convicted, how the information or the evidence was somehow falsified against him. He just utilizes words. Rigged. Yeah. Conflicted judge. Yeah. November 5th. Okay. There's more. So former President Trump's New York felony conviction cannot stop him, according to one lawyer, cannot stop him from becoming president if voters put him back in office. Legal scholars seem to agree. The Constitution imposes very few prerequisites for the presidency. A candidate must be at least 35 years of age, a natural-born citizen, which there's debate about what that even means, and a U.S. resident for a minimum of 14 years. It says nothing about the impact of a felony conviction on a president's ability to serve. Now, this is the point of dissension with me. And I'm going to read this scholar's actual quote so it is not taken out of context. So according to one scholar, the short answer is yes, there's no constitutional bar, said Corey Bretschneider, a lawyer and professor of political science at Brown University and author of The Presidents and the People. quote, the Constitution lays out some specific requirements of what's required, but there's nothing explicitly in the Constitution about being convicted of a crime as a disqualification, end quote. This is uncharted, unprecedented territory here. So while it is an accurate statement that the Constitution provides three loosely defined, very easy requirements: natural born, US citizen, 35 years of age, had to live in America 14 years, 14 continuous years, 14 years at an aggregate. We don't know. It doesn't define that part either. But those are the basic three rules. And according to some of the legal scholars who have decided to opine on this matter, they have said it's open and shut. If it's so open and shut, explain this to me. Why is it that Ohio and other states made some moves already, Republican legislators? Why are they making moves to protect Trump's ballot access if Trump's ballot access has not been threatened or cannot be threatened? Let me go a step further. Because state elections are ran by the state and federal elections are ran by the state, that means that states have what's called ballot access control. This is something, ironically, that was pushed by Republicans. Also, states are able to add additional what's called statutory qualifiers in addition to your legal rights. Let me explain. You see, you have the right to vote. Your right to vote is protected by the US Constitution. The Constitution does not specifically say that your right to vote is revoked if you commit a crime. However, states write laws that will create an additional qualifier to say, in order to exercise this particular right, which is in fact protected by the Constitution, you must adhere to these additional statutory requirements. The Supreme Court has upheld that these statutory requirements, which includes criminality, felony probation, parole, and presenting ID to vote, are within the rights of the state to add these additional qualifications. This is something that I posted yesterday after the verdict on my IG. You can check it out. Now that Trump has been found guilty based on congruent state laws, he should. Now, this is a theoretical proposition. He should no longer be eligible to run for United States presidency, but there are some nuances that will be explored in the coming days. For example, Georgia state statute prohibits American citizens who have been convicted of a felony, Trump has 34 felonies, from registering to vote, participating in an election as a voter, and from running for elected positions while serving time for the conviction. This includes parole. Ironically, these laws were primarily championed by conservatives, but plenty of Dems were down with them as well. Now, there are those who will say, well, wait a minute, that's because these are other kinds of elections for the state, but the presidency is a national election. Well, but the rules have been applied and upheld for those running for Congress. That's a federal election as well. However, it is state controlled. There's more. While the Constitution grants a person the right to run for president under loosely defined terms, all federal elections are state run, which grants them ballot placement authority. This is a conflict in law and may have to be decided by the courts. Another scenario. A state allows for Trump to run, but due to their state laws, refuse to either A, count his voters, or B, not recognize his electors. For those who believe the US Constitution's simple language of running for president is open and shut, let me remind you the right to vote is protected by the Constitution, but states have added other qualifications for voters. Trump claims the trial was rigged, and the prosecution or prosecutors did not call certain witnesses because those witnesses would have helped him. Number one, Trump's defense team had the same opportunity to call witnesses just like the prosecution. If there were witnesses Mr. Trump wanted to testify on his behalf, his defense attorneys could have easily called them to the stand. They did not. Two, Trump was not indicted by the Manhattan DA, but a New York grand jury. They are American citizens. Three, Trump was found guilty by a jury of his peers who served as the fact finders for this case and heard all evidence presented. They are American citizens as well. Four, Trump was tried in a court of law because of his constitutional right to due process. He had access to some of the best legal defense attorneys money could buy. No rigging took place according to his own counsel. 5. Other politicians have been convicted of similar crimes in the past. Trump is not the first, i.e. Senator John Edwards and others. Now, once again, they're going to tell you, just look at the 3 things in the Constitution. You know, we have a constitutional right to bear arms, correct? However, states get to define how that right is interpreted statutorily. Let's put it up. Statista.com. In the United States, gun laws vary from one state to the next. Whether residents need a permit or a background check to purchase a firearm, whether residents must undergo firearm training before making this purchase, and whether residents can openly carry their guns in public is dependent upon state legislation. It's also dependent on how old the individual is. What is the age of majority for that particular state? In Alabama, it's 19, and Georgia's 18. Some states allow you to have a gun at 12 years old. Some states say you must age it to it once you become age majority. In other words, yes, states get to define statutory principles for exercising your constitutional rights. So once again, in all due respect to the legal scholars who, just like myself, this is our first time here, gentlemen. All due respect, please be a little more nuanced in how we talk about the Constitution, because clearly, we're against a group that took away a woman's right to choose when everybody said that would never happen. Why? Because Republicans did not accept what it seems as if Democrats are willing to. All right, Jackson, thoughts here.
So, like you said, this is unprecedented. This has never happened exactly like this. And I got 3 main takeaways. And first, just how this may shift up the voting block. I personally think that Joe Biden has lost the youth vote. I don't really know if there's much that he can do to get that back, not just because of the situation with the Palestinians suffering in Gaza, but also just because of his general lackluster agenda for millennials and down, whether it be tackling debt of all kinds, or really just stimulating programs that are of interest. Kind of taking those typical milquetoast measures to where he can say, yeah, we did X, Y, and Z for climate change. We did a little bit for student loan debt, but not enough to really give his campaign some juice. So that may not matter, though, too much now because Trump's a convicted felon. So perhaps this will be just like a normal election, because normally the youth, normally the youth and progressives don't show up to the polls for real anyway. So this may be a normal election turnout with just establishment voters and independents. And 2, the second takeaway, I think it's evident that Donald Trump is going to continue to lose all of his court cases. Yeah. Before this one, he lost all of his civil cases, and he doesn't help himself in any way. I mean, he came out, I'm a very innocent man. We did nothing wrong whatsoever. Yeah, sure. And unfortunately, these other criminal trials aren't going to happen before November. If they did, I think that would really just be over for him because the other ones are more serious. But he's going to continue to lose. And the third takeaway is if Trump doesn't win, he's screwed. I mean, what reason does anybody have to help him if he's not president? None. He's old. He can't help nobody no more. He's out of money and he doesn't have any real friends. All he has is the base. So if he loses, I think it's pretty reasonable to assume that he's going to end up going to prison because he's guilty. So,
and you are right about the upcoming trials, the upcoming court cases. And here's what happens: because he's now a convicted felon, guess what? He gets convicted again. He's now a repeat offender. A repeat offender can get an enhanced sentencing because you're dealing with an individual that is a multi-offender now, because he has the felony convictions on his record. Hell of a thing. We'll bring you updates as they develop.